A name that ceased to exist more than 60 years ago has been revived this morning at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. Central of Georgia Railway 282, number 699, looked magnificent in Chattanooga's morning light, posing at TVRM's Grand Junction Station, ready to lead the day's Summerville Steam Special. The museum property is packed full of neat equipment, some on static display, and some still in revenue service. TVRM serves 3 freight customers along their trackage, with this Southern high hood regularly used on light-duty tasks. Rolling off Baldwin's factory floor in 1911, this engine is really Southern Railway 4501, dressed up in CofG markings for TVRM's Founders Day celebrations. Gone are the red number boards and yellow lettering, replaced by white-walled tires and CofG logos. Dare I say it, but this was an even better sight than 4501's usual look. During the World War II era, the 282s were known as MacArthurs, a historically accurate nickname to CofG's prototypes, as is displayed by some exquisite cab detailing. In addition to its aesthetic appeal, this new appearance serves a symbolic purpose, paying tribute to the road that most of the Summerville Special operates over. Beginning at Grand Junction, the train will travel south for downtown Chattanooga, where it swings onto an NS branch line that runs up until the Tennessee-Georgia border at Rossville. Ownership is then transferred to the Chattooga and Chickamauga Railway, a Genesee and Wyoming short line operating the remaining 45 miles of track into Lyerly. Save the TVRM trackage off the Southern, the Special's route hails back to the Central of Georgia Railway. 699's trip down to Summerville would mark the first time since dieselization that a CofG steamer ran on home rails, and I was eager to witness the spectacle. Departing Grand Junction, engine 699 was easy on the eyes as it began the 52-mile journey for Summerville. Even more exciting than 4501's disguise was the social aspect of the day, as I was joined by a few friends who thankfully knew the area much better than I did. They suggested our next shot be north of downtown along Holt's Claw Avenue, in hopes that the engineer would be making liberal use of his Central of Georgia 5-chime whistle. There's not much in the way of scenery along this road, but the acoustics absolutely made up for it. Prior to 2025, the Summerville Special was suspended for years due to track work. This curfew was recently lifted, and everybody, including the museum, was in high spirits. Just a few days before this run, the TVRM announced that 4501's cosmetic alterations would stick around for the weekend, which brought out droves of rail fans to photograph the already popular Summerville Special. This train has long been an interest of mine, and I had been planning to chase for a few weeks regardless, so I was pretty happy that the CofG markings stuck around for my visit. TVRM rails will soon join Norfolk Southern at the Class 1's nearby yard before continuing south on the old CofG for Rossville. The border town has clearly left its industrial heyday in the past, although the remnants do make for a nice backdrop as the excursion rolls on to its third host railroad. The CCKY had a high rail dispatched to precede the train south, which was soon on scene and performing a slow-speed exchange of paperwork. We were hopeful this would result in some aggressive acceleration, and got what we wished for as the MacArthur delivered some great stack talk while approaching the photo line. Cleverly positioned behind the locomotive, Central of Georgia rail car number 390 was a cherry on top of today's masquerade. I was fascinated by the entire consist, with the GTW heavyweight and C&O streamliner on the bottom end also of particular interest. From Rossville, we unanimously agreed on our next location further south, setting up alongside the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. A Civil War historical site, the park is where Union troops once won victory over Chattanooga. It's also a popular spot to photograph the southbound special as CCKY tracks exit the tree tunnel and provide a nice head-on shot of the coal burner. Going for quality over quantity with the steam train, the military park is where my friends and I really began to ease off the gas. Although rail fanning usually provides me alone time, I also quite enjoy having company. It's not often one gets to talk trains with like-minded friends, and after a lengthy hangout in the national park, we all moseyed south for Rock Spring. While the town is home to one of the more iconic shots of the Summerville trip, I had eyes for an open field shot to the north, setting up on the shoulder of US 27. This is the same road I've used to chase US Sugar Steam and Florida Northern High Hoods, with the 699 a nice addition to the highlight reel. I've been seriously rail fanning for nearly a decade now, and it is always fun to reflect on past adventures, at which point I realized there has been a noticeable shift in my rail fanning practices. While Class 2 and 3 freight carriers will always be my favorite, I've been heavily leaning on tourist railroads as of late. Trying to maximize weekends while still searching out eclectic power puts most short lines out of the question, but outfits like TVRM, Conway Scenic, and everything in between are sure to fill the void. Southern 4501 has been a part of TVRM for nearly the museum's entire existence, purchased by its co-founders in 1964, just 3 years after the museum was incorporated. In its 61 years under TVRM's purview, the locomotive has appeared in numerous movies, undergone 2 full restorations, and headlined steam programs of the Southern and successor NS. Recent years have seen it make a career on the train to Summerville, a seasonal run that happens once every few weeks. Out of all the trains I've chased, I don't think I've ever fully adhered to the plan I laid out the night before. Today was no different, as I had thrown caution to the wind and decided to catch back up with the chase party in Rock Spring. I was more than fashionably late and had to take what was left of the curve shot, pleasantly surprised at how well it came together. While 4501 is of Southern heritage, her tender is true to the Central of Georgia. It was originally semi-permanently attached to one of the railroad's 210-2 locomotives, before later being pressed into MOW service until it was donated to the TVRM. Boasting more capacity than 4501's original tender, this one was selected to accompany the engine, increasing its operational range, which allowed for extensive use in the aforementioned mainline steam programs. South of Rock Spring, I found myself with a relatively high-speed run-by as the MacArthur breezes past some of CCKY's motive power. Tucked clear of the Summerville Special's path, we must remember this is an active freight railroad and how gracious it is of Genesee and Wyoming to help make this happen. There is no shortage of industry anywhere in Georgia, and I was soon looking at more of it from the truck bed as the Summerville Special passed a cardboard manufacturing facility. Most steam chases I've been on have traversed mountainous landscapes, although gradient is a non-issue on the Special's route. From Chattanooga to Summerville, there's only a 40-foot difference in elevation, with a small climb beginning south of Lafayette. The town is where just about all rail fans accumulated in order to see 699 pass the semaphore signal, but I was late to this party too, and decided to make do from CCKY's parking lot. No such thing as a bad shot this morning, though, as the Special steam engine continued south. By Lafayette, I had thrown out my plans completely and was simply tagging along with my friends. I didn't have many spots picked out regardless, as the route isn't incredibly scenic, but the town of Tryon provides some relief. In town, the Central of Georgia crosses the Chattooga River by way of an old through-truss bridge span, which served the railroad's Dixie Flyer and Georgian passenger trains between Chicago and Florida. In fashion of the era, these trains were operated by multiple railroads to achieve their lengthy routing, including ACL and the Southern. Although I filmed these E-units a few months prior and 300 miles away, it's pretty cool to think they once worked alongside the Central of Georgia. Although I tend to favor the history of locomotives and physical infrastructure over the rail cars themselves, I am always intrigued by the full rosters of tourist and museum railroads. As with most others among its rank, today's Summerville special represents a plethora of previous owners from all across the country. As 699 closes in on Summerville, the Appalachian Plateau rises up near the Alabama border. These peaks are some of the mountain range's southernmost, although this is as close as the rails will get here in Tryon. Noted for the Chattooga River crossing, Tryon is one of the last quality run-bys prior to Summerville. As the town centerpiece, the station was also hosting Summerville's Fall Festival, adding to the controlled chaos as both rail fans and curious bystanders gravitated trackside. Although the chase itself would end in Summerville, there was a lot of switching to look forward to, as engine 699 was set to spin on the Summerville turntable in order to lead the train back north. It's wonderful when tourist outfits capitalize on their ability to turn special power, meaning the MacArthur could lead without diesel assistance in both directions. I'd seen an active turntable in Altoona, but had a feeling this would be cooler, as locomotive number 699 crept into the station just as the Dixie Flyer and Georgian would have done half a century prior. even though track speed was slow, switching was gonna happen quickly. After uncoupling from its consist, 699's first task was to reverse into the siding and remove the southern caboose from the turntable's lead. The CofG steam engine toting a southern caboose was awfully poetic, as the latter would absorb the former in 1963 after 68 years of independence. Built in 1949, this cupola-style caboose served both the Savannah and Atlanta and Southern Railway, used as a display piece for the TVRM, and regularly residing on the turntable lead. I'm not sure the purpose this serves the railroad, but wasn't about to question it, as it did provide additional opportunities to enjoy 699 in action. Steam engines are one of my favorite things about the railroading industry. Their sensory overload is unmatched, and I really like the utilitarian look with numerous external apparatuses readily viewable. I know not what they all do, but I can recognize a reverser when I see one. Notice how the horizontal rod above the second axle drops as the engineer puts his iron horse into forward gear in order to shove the caboose aside. With the southern caboose in the clear, it was now time for 699 to take a spin on Summerville's turntable. The mass of onlookers was a mix of residents, rail fans, and museum patrons, as we all took delight in this throwback scenario. 4501's disguise, Summerville's timeless charm, and a working turntable all lend a hand in transporting viewers decades into the past. Nearly as old as the locomotive riding on it, this 90-ton, 100-foot-long turntable was built in 1916 and spun locomotives of the Louisville and Nashville at the railroad's yard in nearby Birmingham. Retired near the turn of the century under CSX, the Class 1 donated it to the TVRM, who worked with Summerville and the Georgia DOT to fund its installation here in town. This included transportation costs, digging a pit for it, driving support pilings into the earth, and placing the turntable itself, which is driven from the center and rides along a single outer rail. At 109 years old, this turntable has had less than a decade of stagnation and is one of approximately 80 still in operation in North America. It doesn't have any preset alignments, instead precisely placed next to the rails by a single operator with the help of many watching eyes on the ground. Once 699 has spun and alignment achieved, it's back onto terra firma, with the well-practiced process taking less than 3 minutes. The steam engine was now ready to return to Chattanooga, with roughly an hour left of the layover at Summerville. It wasn't time to run around the train just yet, though, as the southern caboose needed to be put back on the lead for the turntable. Now that everything was back how the crew found it, it was time to return to the consist while guests finished their lunch and boarded for the return trip. It was here that I broke off from the Summerville special, catching up with some friends at a local watering hole and making our way up to CSX's main line along Nickajack Lake. Thanks for rail fanning with me today. I hope you enjoyed this special look at 4501 as much as I did.